Good evening. You're listening live to the Xtreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob, broadcasting to you from the Xtreme Studios in the Pinos Palace, just west of Orlando, Florida. I have from the great Midwest himself, RDV, and tonight we're entering the movie Thunderdome, where we have Conan the Barbarian from 1982 and First Blood as well from 1982. Two movies enter, one movie leaves, and
Yep.
this is a discussion RDV where we've been trying to give a preview out for Sunday night when we're going to be doing 10 films of 1982 and reviewing them as a group here. That's been pretty popular lately.
hmm
And, we got two major heavyweight contenders here. I really don't know who has an edge. You've got Schwarzenegger's comeback routine from weightlifting and bodybuilding, Conan, which is just a tremendous film. You got First Blood with Stallone, which to me, while Rocky's just so incredible, this kind of really launched him in the stratosphere, too. I don't know where to begin. What do you think?
Honestly, I love both these equally. I just can't wait till we get to Commando coming out. Talk
Right?
about that. But I mean, Arnold versus Stallone. That's what they're talking about in the chat. This is the rivalry of the '80s, says Ed Brewer. Uh, honestly, I love Conan. I love the intro. I love the music. I love the sword sorcery. Man of few words gets the woman, defeats the bad guy. Then we also have, well, another man of few words in this movie. He's a veteran and gets harassed by the cops, because he's a drifter. And it's good to go either way. Honestly, I love both these movies. I always love Conan the Barbarian. Uh, Comes to Stallone,
Yeah.
we think of Rocky. Rambo is second, at least for me. I always think of Rocky first because that's what you hear. Rocky for this, Rocky that. Where First Blood, Rambo, isn't really talked about as much lately today, which is kind of sad.
Yeah, Moran, you're saying why not E.T. versus Rocky 3? Hey, there's lots of great matchups, right? And if we did a big,
Well,
huge stream, I mean, that would be something, right? I mean,
well, if we,
or
if
draw, but we
I'm gonna say
there's
really quickly,
there's no particular thing that will decide it that if we told you the script,
yeah.
you'd be able to pick. It's a
Uh,
feel thing.
if we went with ET versus Rocky 3, I would say Rocky 3 because I hate ET. It's such a boring movie.
Yeah, we wanted two ones to generate some discussion because I think both of these films are really significant. But I have one ace up my sleeve, so to speak, when it comes to these films. Well, let's talk about First Blood. I think when you're watching this when you're younger, it's so cool and it's so badass. You got a guy that's not going to get bullied. You understand him being bullied as being a drifter. They want him out of town because if you were a vagrant, that was not looked upon kindly. Generally speaking, I know things are a little different now these days, but back
Yeah,
then you got to see, hey, I'll drive you to the edge of town, drop you off, and he turns and he walks right back. As a kid, I'm like, F yeah, that's the way to do it without yelling and screaming.
right.
Do it. The knife, the hiding, the
Oh,
training.
yeah,
You see his character revealed through how he handles situations without knowing immediately right off the bat what he is and everything else there too. So that's always one of the better things about it. And he doesn't have to talk. He doesn't have to do whatever. He's a lean, probably 160 pounds in this. A lot of guys liked his physique because he's a workout machine. And it really kind of expanded it too. And it really told the story of Vietnam in a way that I think really hit home for a lot of people back then in the early 80s too, because that was a big undercurrent theme in the 80s
hmm
too about leaving POWs over there and all that people did not want to address. First Blood is a tremendous movie. The cinematography is incredible. It's an action movie. Every once in a while, I'm like, I don't know, it's cold outside, it's wet. Put on
yeah,
First Blood, and it just feels so good about it. Even though it's got a bit of a 80s kind of ending to it or whatever like that, it's not bad, and he gives a decent little
yep.
monologue there. But it's just some of the many things about First Blood that's great. It's pretty straightforward. There's no tricks to it.
Well, yeah, you bring up the whole thing, him coming in, drifting. I think the sheriff is complete dictum, but I forget who the sheriff's actor is. If you know what it is,
Ryan
look it up.
Dennehy.
Lime Dennehy, who is a character actor, has been in a few other movies as well. Um, but yeah, so Stallone going in there, he basically his character John Rambo is kind of swallowing in there, and they're just kind of being a jerk to harassing. Oh, you can't speak with a tough guy and stuff. And so I'm thinking like, this is the abuse that we've heard about before of our veterans coming back. People spitting on them because they went to war and final. And just seeing this guy, he's quietly, he's just trying to make his way through town to have a decent meal and stuff, and he's being harassed. He ends up getting PTSD, getting triggered again, and ends up basically going, taking out the cops, not killing them though, but ends up going out. There's a big manhunt. You get to see where his character just basically jumps off of off of a cliff into the river. oh man, it's just like it's insane. And then you said talk about him, the disguise, where he's basically they're all walking single file one by one in this cold, wet, rainy, season in the forest, the woods there. And you see him; he's covered in mud. He comes out from the wall, the stone wall, and you just see him with the knife. And like it is just like crazy. They got the army coming in
Yep.
to take him out, trying
Mhm.
to blow him up. It is just intense. And I believe this ends with the fight scene on top of the was it the sheriff's department? I forget,
Yeah,
or was it?
downtown and all
Yeah,
that too, where he's
yeah.
yeah.
But
Marnie's making a comment there that is interesting to address about sell me on why I would want to see First Blood. Well, here's the thing:
well,
there's been movies before this that have to deal with Vietnam, and it's more of a kind of a trick thing. If you think of like Billy Jack, well, that's because he could
mhm,
use his feet, right? That's kind of cool, but
yeah.
it wasn't really Vietnam. This one
Oh,
isn't about him killing people. To your point, it would have been very easy for him to have killed the sheriffs and
oh
taken
yeah.
everybody out, and he busts his ass to try to minimize the amount of force and not go lethal on them for it. And it's pretty simple. He's a guy who's like trying to go see an old buddy of his, and
Hmm.
he has to deal with. And the way that his character gets revealed all the way through, and then you get into Act Two, where you get the great thing about the guy who trained him coming in there, and they're in the war tent,
Colonel. Yep.
and like, well, God didn't make Rambo. I did, and he goes over everything, and just the ending where he's like, like, well, you just have to be prepared. Well, what's that for, Sheriff? I'm going to supply of body bags. You're like, fuck yeah, come on.
Oh yeah, the Colonel is really amping up as far as how tough Rambo is. He's like you don't understand Rambo. He thinks he's still in the war.
Yeah.
He never came home.
As a
You know.
kid, that didn't really hit home.
No.
The intensity of it and all that too. And I think the best way to see this seriously is not him telling us and we seeing the skills that he is able to go, because this is also like a survivor kind of movie, which is cool. It's Brian Dennehy kind of, it's the classic thing. He fucked around and he found out, right? Because you can tell he's in the middle of it and he's gone past that point of no return where he just seemingly can't dial it back,
Yep.
even though he wants to. And so they're going out of the way here in this movie to make everybody not necessarily seem like an asshole or too simplistic, but you see where Brian Dennehy kind of overdid it and he kind of admits it to the guy, and then they just want to make right by it the best that they can. And you see how hard the struggle is for him to survive. It's not the Rambo that everybody in the 80s knows with the guns and explosions and heavy and all that
No,
kind of stuff.
no, no.
That's cool and it's adventurous, but this isn't. This is about survival. It's about, I'm in a dark place. I just need to do what I can, whether it's killing the boar, trying to make the little outfit for him, and all that. And it's just great. And the scenes where he's stalking everybody, it's basically bringing Vietnam to the U.S. because a lot of people pretty much ignored all that. Seeing this on the big screen, not just as a character movie, which it's great at, but to see him like sneaking up behind the guy, and he's got the knife to his throat, and he's like, "Let it go, let it go." I mean, he's doing everything he can. You will believe
uh,
it. I
I
mean,
know.
it's phenomenal. And it doesn't he doesn't shit on you really really big in a huge explosion in the first act and then a bunch of different things. It's not. It's a slow gradual build up to that final climax like we talked about. And if it's done right at the end, it's worth it. This is one of the few movies that really I think captures that well. After this, you can say whatever you want about Rambo, and you'd probably be right. This movie is head and shoulders above all the other Rambo movies.
As far as the box office, or at least the ranking, neither one of these movies are on the top 10 according to the list of American films in 1982.
Oh no, it's all the kid friendly shit.
Yeah. Well, an Officer and Gentleman got up there.
That's a good
Uh,
movie though.
yeah, Rocky 3 was up there. It's number 4. Basically, I'll read out as far as when I know what the top 10 is. E.T. won because it was a kid movie. Tootsie, I still haven't seen yet. It was number 2. Officer and Gentleman was number 3. Rocky 3 was number 4. Porky's was coming in number 5. Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan, is at number 6. 48 Hours, awesome movie, is at number 7. Poltergeist at 8. And The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas at 9. And then number 10 is Annie. So, as far as box office, I'm not sure which one is made more money than the other one, but I'm just
First
saying
Blood
that's,
made a little bit more,
yeah.
about 10 million more, about
But
50 million to about 40 roughly.
yeah, like I said, I sadly for me when it comes to Rambo, when someone says, "Oh, have you what Rambo?" I'm like, the first thing that pops in my head is Rambo 3. the desert, over in Iraq. Honestly, some people say that's the worst one, but that's the one I always go to because that's the one that has the grenades on the bow and arrows. But First Blood though, it's just called First Blood. It's not called Rambo, which is it's just like Indiana Jones. It's just called Raiders.
Yeah.
Yeah. So later on, they decided to call this Rambo First Blood, which always threw me off because like it's just First Blood Part 1. Like Part 1, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
So when it came to the second one, it's like it was I think what was the second one called? Was it called First Blood Part 2? Or was it
Rambo Part 2, as far as I'm concerned?
Yeah,
really.
yeah, exactly. But overall, like I said, this is Rambo. Actually, it's not Rambo, but First Blood. If you've never seen First Blood, do yourself a favor, go find out where it's streaming or buy it if you can on Blu-ray and just watch it. It is such a brilliant shot movie. Like I said, the scenery, everything on location. When it comes to basically where they're chasing or tracking down the woods, all the way to the scene in the sheriff station. It is just exceptionally a movie you can see at least once if you haven't seen it. And Stallone gives a great performance. Stallone is a great actor. When he sees, he's not. You're not getting the Rocky speech, but you are, when he sits the end, it's like, it's like, what about us, I don't know what my brothers, like in Vietnam, it was for nothing. I just love it,
Yeah, and the thing with Stallone too is you go back with all the minor stuff that he did, how broke he was, and how he sold out for Rocky, and then of course Rocky 2 is a great film as well. I mean, it's a bit more polished than the first one. I still have to get the slight edge of the first one, but the second one's fucking fantastic. And so you can see where people go like, he's just milking the Rocky character. He got lightning in a bottle and he's just trying to bleed it. So it was really important for him to kind of come out with a film like this that's like not Rocky, totally different, and it's got a message to it. And I'm not saying political or social necessarily, but something about the time. And this is about when people start realizing, whether it's acting, hey, let's not forget that he likes to write and he likes to flesh out the characters for him and have a backstory and everything. And he'll do completely rewrites of scripts and everything too, and he likes to challenge himself and do things differently. And it's quite on display on here too for a guy that was definitely not in his early 20s, if you know that way. So this one really did a good job of like what Orson Welles probably really couldn't have captured way back in the day. You come out with one of the greatest films of all time, how do you follow that up? You come out with Rocky, how do you follow that up if you're still on? Well, hey, First Blood's it's definitely a very solid entry too. If you didn't have the Rocky movies on the First Blood, it'd still be a great film. It'd still be fantastic.
Well, it does prove that he can do stuff other than Rocky, because Rocky was a success, and obviously coming with the third one, that's why he made more money because people are familiar with it. They love this. They love the first one. They love the second one even more. Now the third one's out. You're gonna go see it, and obviously Stallone. And when First Blood, I imagine First Blood comes, like, wait, he's doing Rocky 3 and he's doing this. Wow, this looks great. This looks awesome. And like I said, as Rob mentioned, a lot of Vietnam veterans, they echoed to this. His portrayal of this was very accurate because they knew people like this had served, and also they just never got over the fact that they never left the war. They are plagued by PTSD, and it's also this one movie brings in the light and how our Vietnam veterans were treated when they came home from the war.
Yeah,
it started off as heroes, and then the media turned on them.
Yeah. And in the 80s, we talk about the divergence of themes where on the surface a lot of your popcorn films and really popular films really dealt with happiness and romance, and things are getting better now and for whatever reason and all that. But then there was still all this other stuff too that was underneath it that really kind of didn't make it. So basically, if you're making a disturbing or dark film, you didn't do well in the 80s. Like The Thing was this year, right? In 1982. I'm sure that's going to come up on Sunday when we review the year. But it's amazing that when you go back and you look at all the films, you're like, man, there's a lot of great films in here. You're like, okay, lighthearted comedy, lighthearted this, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And then you go, yeah, these all did pretty good. Then you go down the rest and you're like, man, the serious stuff, the dark stuff's usually down at the bottom, even if it's a really good film.
The other reason that we didn't choose E.T. and the other ones because those are obvious picks because they're most popular ones. According to box office, we want to go for ones that are more kind of maybe a little more obscure. That because a lot of people are going to go like, what's the top movies in 1982? Well, we'll go. I just read you off the top 10. They're going to do that. No, we're going to choose the ones that we personally like, the best, and then we let you guys decide. And this also gives you the opportunity, if you've never seen these, like you said, if you only watch E.T. in 1982, you didn't read Rocky 3, you didn't ever watch Rambo movies, or watch Conan the Barbarian, my God, you need to watch these. These are must-see films. These are considered one of the best, or actually two of the best films that came out in 1982.
Well, this is also the year, to me, if I recall correctly, when we were reviewing Chuck Norris films, and we talk about like Silent Rage or whatever, and all these things there too. Like, man, there's this, there's that, there's whatever.
Yeah.
This year's got so many great films into it, and some of them are kind of darker, a little more serious. And obviously the box office would be dominated by the happy ones too. But Conan did do fairly well. It wasn't no chump change or whatever. But if we were to say that Rambo is probably the gold standard when it comes to Vietnam veteran movies, which I think there's a strong argument for that. Although certainly not the topic of tonight. When we flip over and we start talking here, and then after that we'll compare both of them as far as the winner. When we talk about Conan, though, to me, I didn't realize watching the time that would be, in my opinion, the gold standard of
Arnold films.
Of fantasy type films. I mean, I love Flash Gordon. I love some of that stuff, but some of that I would call more childish and more fantasy driven. But this movie is phenomenal. Tell us what you think about Conan.
Conan the Barbarian. I saw this when I was 10 or 12 years old. I had no idea what I was getting into. I was just watching it, and I just, man, I was captivated by the very beginning. Mako, or is it Mako?
Mako.
Who does the narration, telling the story of Conan. This is, his father was a master swordsmaker, and then the village gets attacked, and it's like, and just like, wow, it's just everything, it's like, it's just his mother ends up being, assaulted and killed too, and he's thrown into slavery, and you see, I love how they transition as the scenes. He's on his giant wheel. What is it doing? Nothing. It's just spinning something, and it's not really doing anything, but only it is doing for Conan is over the years, he's the last one after all these kids are on there. It's still pushing and has gained all this muscle. I was like, dude, I need one of these wheels. but I just love
that's not what would happen, but I understand your point.
Yeah, right.
That's an endurance activity, not a progressively overloaded one.
Yeah. So eventually, he gets sold into slavery. He's in slavery again. He gets bought by somebody else, trained how to fight. He gets spoiled. And eventually he becomes like the best gladiator there is. He's spoiled with all the lace up. But eventually, the guy who he says after years, like, Conan, you served me well. You need your freedom. You're a free man. And Conan had really, and it's the first time Conan had ever had any time to make his own decisions.
Yes.
And so seeing this, eventually he comes across a woman who, and then another guy who they're thieves. They end up breaking into Tulsa Doom's one of his many towers he has for work.
His fronts.
Yeah. Yes. Seeing a girl with the sacrifice and stuff, and they steal some stuff and they get out of there. And it's just Conan. It's just the whole thing. Conan basically, like I said, it's Arnold Schwarzenegger, but you're not getting the funny Arnold. This is serious Arnold.
Yep.
Which is really different because after this, we saw all through the 90s. Now he's Mr. Joker, or as far as jokey. But I like the fact this whole fantasy stuff. He meets the girl, falls in love with her, and of course, as I always tell like this, her heartbreak, she ends up dying. And it's a heart-wrenching movie, but it's just fun to see him take on the bad guy, and to see James Earl Jones, who looks more like Al Roper.
Stop it, and that's Roker.
Roker, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes. Turning into a giant snake was always the craziest thing. Seeing too, this guy is like, what the heck? Because and it's just giant. Yeah, that's the other thing too. The CG kind of here was still not like it is today, but I mean it was still practical. Yeah, it was great. And like I said, seeing this one man blending in with all these people who are on this cult, the cult of Tulsa Doom. And if you've read any of the Conan the Barbarian comic books or read any of the older stories by Robert Was it Edward Rice Burroughs?
Edgar
He
Rice
said,
Burroughs,
yeah,
Tarzan.
yeah, yeah. Well, he did Conan the Barbarian too, as well. He
That
did
was Robert
stories.
Howard.
Or Robert Howard, sorry, Robert Howard, sorry. Um, just reading that stuff, and then see how faithful they were to those books. They didn't. This wasn't like today's Hollywood. Well, we don't care about source material. We're gonna make our own thing because we know what you like.
Yeah.
It is just awesome. Um, and like I said, the music, the swords, it's just everybody wanted to be Conan. Every little kid is like, dude, I want to be Conan the Barbarian. Give me a sword, give me a woman, give me some mead. It
Yeah.
was it's awesome.
I think one thing that people forget about Conan and the names and all the praise it's gotten over the years by the hardcore enthusiasts of this film, ourselves included, is the fact that it's very simply a basic story of what's supposed to happen in a man's life. And I always talk about the Joseph Campbell idea of the hero's journey because I think that sums up so well that you have in all cultures here in the world slightly different versions of basically the same story, right?
Mhm.
Boy meets girl, boy wins girl, boy loses girl, whatever, all this kind of stuff, love triangles, right? It's universal, right? And to your point, you've got a kid that went through shit, went through hell. He was a lone survivor, didn't know how to make decisions on his own. He's best of breed, just by Mother Nature, and he gets a very fortunate opportunity, if you want to call it luck in life, that he earned by the suffering he went through when the guy set him free. But he still had to overcome
Mhm.
everything. And so I think that's one of the strongest elements of this, especially as I get older and watch this, because we can talk about, oh yeah, that they fed him women to, so he could learn how to have sex and all that. And it's just a quick scene. It's not a big deal. It's not sexist movie in that regard. It's just the male version. He's basically a pretty simple idiot if you think about it, and he's very easily manipulated. But to the point where he does fall in love and doesn't know what it is, and then the king hires them to go rescue his daughter who goes into the cult. Hey, that's very typical as well.
Right, right.
You could argue that it's a movie that when you look at the characters that are the most striking, they're the ones that are most individual. Even when he's coming across one of the most dangerous things that could happen to a young man, that's the Too Good to Be True witch, who's was an Italian porn actress at the time with that husky voice. I don't know. I do
Oh
not
yeah.
know one kid growing up that did the boost like, oh my god, that scene, then da 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 da, where she's trying to take advantage of him, and he's just a piece of meat to her. I mean, there's all these little like life lessons of things that will happen to you into it, and again, we've talked about before, the build up to the very end. She has to die. They have to suffer and go through hell, literally, whatever you want to call it.
Well,
So
he
at the
he
end, you
dies, and
have
this
the payoff.
I love
You
the
know?
fact that Conan gets injured and he's on the brink of death. So Mako does his little chant thing, and then they have to hold him down because the spirits are trying to raise him up because pick his corpse body, and they're trying to hold him down. And like it's just awesome how the special effects, how they do that, how they have the demons, the ghosts coming towards the people and stuff.
The
That was
way
really
that
cool.
looked to me, even though it's not as clear as you would have with CGI today, digital effects, I still like that look better. I like everything you said
Yeah,
about the snake changing scene.
yeah,
Even though it's animatronics or whatever, when the giant snake, when the girl sacrifices herself and they go in there and they're hacking it to death, and it's a struggle and it's hard and they're shooting arrows in and all that, I
yeah.
still think that scene works. It gives you a nice sense of scale. Um, you don't need to have tons of the other stuff. And to back up, just the beginning opening scene with Robert Smith, who was a primetime stud in his own right as his father. You're like, this movie's got all these
Yeah.
authentic people in these roles that are giving him the rub, which is great. And everybody in that warring tribe, um, they look the role. I mean, you got Conan, obviously,
Oh yeah.
as an adult, but you've got other a lot of those guys were professional bodybuilders. Or Arnold knew they didn't have to speak; they didn't have to. They look the role when they're having the big fight in the orgy, and they've got those giant, huge mouths. It's like, even though they're probably not that heavy, they look heavy. They feel heavy the way they swing them. If you've ever held a broadsword, an authentic one,
Yes.
it's not light. I know people that are
No.
weapons
No.
collectors, and you're like, oh, you can't do all that stuff. You
And
have to learn and train. You
I
can't
love
just swing it willy nilly.
I loved how Conan got his armor from though. He was being he was wandering
Yes,
and he comes across this he's being
tomb.
chased by wolves. Yeah, and he
Mhm.
comes to tomb. He finds this guy with the sword and the armor in there, and then he's trapped in there. So he has to try to get out, and he finally finds a way out. And like I said, and then he kills the wolf. Next thing you know, it's like this. Like 5 seconds later, he's got a wolf pelt he's wearing and everything. It's just like oh.
That's indication that once he made it out, he killed them. So now he's sufficiently,
the alpha.
he's self-sufficient now. And if you want to look at it allegorically, you could say, well, that's him dying and then kind of like coming back to life, right? Because now he's looking at a
Yeah.
part of his future self here as perhaps a dead king. You don't know if that inspires him, but the point is he's trying to find purpose.
The
And so when
only
he gets the standard and they start looking for it,
yeah.
and all these people find one way, it's that story of when you make a decision, when you shit or get off the pot, things click and happen to you and for you. Not you just sit around and nothing happens, right? If you don't, then you're going to be easily swayed. Like, you know, he could have been seduced by the witch, or for example, the king's daughter who then ends up in a cult.
Yeah, and then it's talking about the cult at the very end scene. You see them; they're all in the robes, white robes. They're all there, and the giant fire is going up. He's the first time he went. He tries to go up there. He knocked out a priest, put on one of the robes. I'm like, this is where I start seeing a little bit flashes of like, this is going to be funny Arnold, because he looks so out of place.
Right.
And to see
what
him,
do
like,
you see, my child?
Yeah,
Infinity. He's walking around
I-
like a goober, showing everybody the jade thing that he stole. I mean, come on, you stupid idiot.
yeah. Oh, but like I said, that scene where he starts fighting everybody, going up the steps, and like I get this, and then in the end, he finally kills Tulsa Doom, and he's holding the head, and then he tosses it, so it bounces down the steps.
That is one of the that is a signature. That's one of the best decapitations in movie history to me,
Yeah.
because it's not just him doing it, showing everybody. Because Clash of the Titans, don't forget, had a really good one too.
Sure, with Medusa.
But this one where it's just sort of rolling there, and you're watching it, and they're letting the film roll. You don't know what the head is going to do, and it's like splat, splat, tumble, tumble, splat, splat.
I know.
Then it kind of like just sort of sits there and vibrates a little bit until it comes to a still point, and it's like it's just awesome to watch. And you're like, that's it. And what happens there? No big speech, nothing. Everybody's kind of like,
They
we're
throw their
done,
candles down.
The spell is broken. They start dumping the candles out, walking off. That's such a great scene, and it's a practical effect, right?
Yeah.
People with candles at night. Oh, it looks so good. Yeah, look, again, like people are saying in the chat, there's no losers here, but the cinematography, this is such a good looking film. I love looking at the human body, male or female, especially when they put a lot of work and effort into it. You know, we all have our genetic dispositions, as it were, and all that too, but it's just, there's nothing to be ashamed about to work that hard at something and all that. And of course, we forgot to really mention that the two people that are partners with them, that's their first time actors. They're not really actors per se. Yeah, she would go on and do other stuff. I don't think he did too. They were fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, Subotai and what's her name?
It's Sandal. Well, the actress is Sandal.
Valeria.
Right? Yeah, Valeria.
The character, Valeria and Subotai.
Oh, yeah.
She wanted to do some other roles. We've talked about her before because we reviewed both of these individually.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, I watched Conan. Was last year reviewed it, I think, later. Yeah. And just watching on the big screen, the music, just Mako narrating, it is such an epic adventure. Just watching this, I love it. First Blood, I haven't seen in a while, but I'm probably gonna watch again because now because we start talking about it, so I'm like, dude, I want to watch this because I know Rambo 2 where he gets the red bandana for the girl he likes because she gets killed, and like so I love but the first one is always like it's so different than the other ones. Which I love about it.
Just like the Evil Dead, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Conan.
Conan. Yeah, because Destroyer was a little different. Yeah, it wasn't that great. It was sadly, now would you like to see Conan, old man Conan?
That last scene where he's sitting there, to me, as a kid, even then watching it, I'm like, yeah, I want to see that. Because, and you and I have talked about this before with TV shows like The Old Man or Pierce Brosnan in the 70s still going on. There's nothing wrong with watching older people perform. Michael Caine's still up there, William Shatner. There's such limited output, I think, for people in those kind of roles that I think it's tremendous. And, from a male perspective, I think seeing what it's like to be king, it's one thing when we see somebody who's a king that has to make decisions, he's used his brain, we get it. But to know that Conan earned it the hard way, and now he's coming at the end, how do you do that? A lot of TV shows and movies today want to sit there and say, well, we want this IP to continue, so we'll just figure out some sort of way to bring somebody in as a rub and this and that. No, and you and I argued this exact same point for how horrible the movie, I believe our opinion was in congruency here, of last Indiana Jones movie. We want to see 80-year-old Indiana Jones deal with what he has to deal with age, deal with but we want to see Indy. We don't want to see somebody taking his place. We don't want to see
Yeah.
him pass the mantle. We don't want to see Shia LaBeouf get the hat at the end of the last movie, and then takes it back. No, we don't want to see any of that crap. I don't care if you're that old. We want to see you old.
Honestly, if they do another Conan movie, I want to see Conan having not a son, but someone he's actually taken care of, and at the end, he sacrifices himself to save that guy or whatever, like because that's something Conan would do. Because I guess obviously it'd be a nice send off for Conan, but and Arnold's still in shape. He's he's not fat. He's not you can tell he's got older, but obviously. Warriors, they fight until they die. We could have one last hurrah where his son gets killed or kidnapped and he has to go.
I think that's all a distraction. Just make it all Conan. Make him lose everything or whatever it is, or I don't know.
Where he has to go kill one more thing because his family's slaughtered.
I don't know, something, but you can't have the family because they haven't been built up. Something's just got to happen.
You wouldn't want to do something like Unforgiven.
Yeah, but that I look at Unforgiven as a
Unforgiven.
Well, just as a group of people getting together rather than one person. Conan to me should be singular. You should a few people helped him out in this movie, but it's about Conan, right? So
like I said, if they do Old Man Conan the Barbarian, I want his exact same kind of dialogue in this movie. I don't want anything else. Because if I want to do that, I'll go watch Commando. I'll go watch some of the other movies he's done where it's just him cracking the jokes. I want
Conan
serious
the politician. Conan. Yeah, I want serious Conan. I don't want goofball stuff.
Right. But I
want to play my ace, sir.
So it comes down to do you Stallone or Arnold in this?
All right. So here's the ace, because I love both these films. I got to go with Conan, and here's why. While I love Back to the Future soundtrack, believe it or not, that's one of my favorite movies from the 80s. It's not my typical kind of film, but it just resonates with me. Conan, when I think of soundtracks and just music, it's one of the best. I'm a big John Carpenter fan, so I'll listen to like the Fog soundtrack just by itself or whatever, driving to work or something like that. I'm always into music and stuff. Conan is one of the few films that has so little dialogue in it that if you've seen it enough times or whatever, just closing your eyes and listening to it, the music's incredible. It's an orchestral score. It's Basil Papadopoulos, whoever his name is, did it. Mm-hmm. And the one thing too about the music that's phenomenal, it's very big. It's got a lot of bravado to it. I'll go back to the orgy scene here. You got the music playing and all that, and it's there and it's present, and they're sneaking around and they're being quiet and they're whispering and all that. So we're just watching, right? You're supposed to watch in the movie, not listen, just but watch. Yeah. This music's playing, but then when things start to pick up, because they're having an orgy and they got the body parts because they're cannibals and all that, and he dumps it down. Everything is cut in such a way that you feel it building up to a certain point in the clash, and then it slightly changes to something else when there's a big difference. And so there's a little swell between one part of the music and another. When one guy looks at him and goes, "You!" and then you hear dun 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 dun, and you're like, "Holy shit! I just want to rip off my shirt and start flexing." Right? The timing, but the timing of the music to what's going on in there. It's a great example of not only being great but not overtaking it, but accentuating what's happening there with the fight. I mean, because really pushes some stuff over. There's some body parts getting flayed there, here and there, but it's a perfect blend of the music and the action implementing themselves with each other. It's just absolutely tremendous.
I mean, also the other thing we got to bring up this is not only like the music crescendo starts building up as the action starts happening.
Yeah,
is we get the guy with the giant battle axe.
Yeah,
who's basically like. I think of Bennett every single time Commando, the rivalry between these two. It's like he just hates Conan. He's like, "I'm gonna kill you, boy." I'm just thinking like it's if Bennett was Conan the Barbarian. And another cool scene because that guy ends up dying by his own axe because Conan uses his axe on him.
Well, the main dude with the long hair, he was the caretaker of the snake that they killed.
Yes.
And I think Thulsa says something to him like you killed his child. He's very upset with you or whatever like that. So now it's personal. You killed my dog, basically. I'm going to kick your ass. I'm going to John Wick you. And boy, they go at it. But remember, the mission was more important than the killing, right? It was to get the girl and get her out.
Yes.
and then that fails, right? I mean,
Yeah.
so that's the beauty of it, is you can
You,
bust your ass, do everything right,
you
live by
talk
this honor code, and still get screwed. Not life is not fair.
you talk about the orgy scene. It's like I'm not even looking at the girls much. I'm looking at, and you see Tulsa Doom turn into a giant snake, start slithering, around the side there, and then going into the hole. And there's a hole in the wall, come out the other side. I'm thinking like, oh, someone's gonna get eaten or wrapped around or whatever. It's just like it just builds up the suspense. And everything, as everything else is going on, as you're trying to sneak. Instead, yeah, and then they battle the snake in there, and I'm like, oh, like I kept thinking, it's like, is this just a pet snake, or was this another Tulsa Doom snake? Another wizard. But regardless, though, it's just the practical effects in here, the music, everything. Conan is an exceptional movie. I give it a 9 out of 10.
That's a
Um,
10 for me. It's God tier.
oh, it is, yeah. It's a movie I can watch again and again. It's not too slow. It's not too fast. It's evenly paced. Um, like I said, it is a more serious Arnold. It is, like I said, and it just keeps to the source material. Um, First Blood, another great movie, but I'm gonna have to go with you as well. I'm going with Conan the Barbarian over First Blood. It's for honestly, and every other given day. Sometimes if I'd watched First Blood recently more, I'd probably lean more towards that. But Conan just has that awesome music, the sword, sorcery, and stuff, which I prefer over guns. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
Conan the movie itself, like I say, being kind of like a story of just what happens to you as a human being from the male perspective. I would argue, I think it's just a bit more powerful.
hmm
Even though it's his character and all that, and we get to see him struggle through everything. First Blood's the same thing, but it's about a unique person, a unique situation, and that doesn't diminish it. I think it's
no,
one of the more effective Vietnam films doing, and I think it came out at the right time. It did a lot for his career. But in terms of these two movies, if I only had to pick one, I still go. I bye bye First Blood. Conan, all these movies, have some great shots to them and look good, and you can think about movies that you remember. E.T. was always known for the shadow figure across the moon or whatever, so a lot of movies like to recreate that or whatever with the bicycle and all that, and that's cute. So when you think of E.T., immediately you think of that, right? There's a scene in Conan where he's getting ready to turn, and you see the kidnapped daughter basically kind of you know, like turned or whatever, and she's laying at his side, and I don't know if he's got like a panther next to him or something or whatever, but just the
hmm
way it kind of like zooms in on him, you could take a snapshot of that one scene. I'm like, I don't know how you could create a better piece of visual fantasy in any sort of film that's not erotic but adult like, not campy like Flash Gordon or whatever, which is a tremendous film. And it just I again, going back to what we talked about before with some movies, like with Indiana Jones, the first one, right? Raiders, right?
yeah,
You're thinking, yeah, man, Raiders is great. Hey, in 30, 40 more years, there's going to be a couple of these great films, whether it's Raiders or a sequel or something else. And I really love adventure films. And then you go, no, it's still the gold standard. I still feel that way about Conan. I've yet to see a movie that eclipses Conan in that genre at all. It's not even close. And despite that, it's got all these wonderful things you've talked about, and everybody in chat's been mentioning. It's tremendous. But that score is something else. You could work out to that score. You could make love to that score. You could have it while you're driving. I mean, but as soon as it comes on, you're like, you just know where you're at. You can almost tell where you're at in the film by listening to it. It's just phenomenal. One of the best movie scores I think ever. And
honestly,
someone
yeah,
says, "Oh yeah, how about that one score, that little piano piece, dun 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 dun." The
yeah.
entertainer. Screw that crap. Give me the friggin' orchestra hit me in the face. I'm going with Conan.
Yeah, as far as we asked about Terminator. Terminator wasn't until 1984, and I don't think there's anything in between as far as Arnold with that.
Yeah, and it's always like a preview of just to get your appetite a little bit wet, so you guys are foaming at the mouth on Sunday when we go
Because
to review 10 movies out of there. Again, we don't have a particular metric that we don't do the top 10 best reviewed or the top 10 money makers, or
no,
we all have our top three, and we put them all together on a list and then add one or something. We don't do that. We make a list of each, and then we just kind of narrow which ones we want that might have a little bit of debate to them, or is
because
significant. And also,
yeah,
the young 20-something Professor Pixel has not seen a lot of these, so that makes it a bit challenging too, because I've seen the majority of everything we're talking about, and RDD, you've
here.
seen a great deal of them yourself too.
Yeah, so I mean, we pull all between the three of us what our personal picks would be and stuff, and then we then we have to eliminate it, because sometimes like this past week we were up to like 12 or 14. You know, you saw, if you saw watch the top 10, go check it out. We did it on Sunday of 1981, and I had runners up there because any of those runner ups could have been in the top 10. It's just I just could not go by without mentioning them real quickly.
Yeah.
And man, we talk about Chuck Norris movies coming up. We could easily have a Thunderdome with Chuck Norris versus Chuck Norris.
Breaker versus Top Dog or whatever it is. That would be a tough one.
Eye
want
for an
matchups,
eye,
baby.
eye
That's
for
what
an
it's all
eye
about.
versus Silent Rage.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Octagon versus the Hitman.
So yeah, like I said, we try to do the ones that we like, because it just seems so like cliche when you see people are like, well, we'll talk about the biggest movies of 1982, E.T. or Rocky 3 or one of the top two. It's like the top 10. It's like everybody does that. We want to talk about the ones that we liked personally best. I mean, we don't always like agree on stuff with the people in the chat, but it's always great to hear the people down below say if they watch these two movies and what they think is the best, or if they have their own, what they think is the best movie of 1982 or 83, whatever we're doing. So it's just fun. It's and it's as Rob brought up, Pixel hasn't watched a lot of these movies, and there's a lot of people in the chat probably have never seen one or two or both these movies we're talking about, and it's a great way to recommend these movies for people to watch, because a lot of these movies, there's no blockbuster anymore to recommend these movies. So unless someone talks to you about them, you're going to forget they ever existed, or even know they existed, because you're in your 20s and you don't hear about the movies in the 80s. So
yeah,
First Blood,
Rambo's amount of movies that like you said are going to be. Hey, Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid's probably not going to be on our list, but damn it, that's a good one, and I like it too. And it's so hard to decide, because you've got great high school movies, you've got action movies, you have this variety where you've got a good solid, say 5 to 10 films, whether it's comedy, whether it's stupid comedy or romantic comedy, and then 10 action, 10. I mean, it's like that's what's tremendous about it. And when I look at a lot of the films that come out today, I go, where's your Conan type movie? Where's your First Blood? Where's your this or that? Almost everything seems relatively the same. And I'm not even picking on, comic books or superhero movies, right? I'm just talking about all the other films that are out there. And I look for them, I try to talk about them. And we'll still do that. It's just, we even did our preview for this year, and it was a weird one.
I mean, we could even do Movie Thunderdome, the 80s, but we could do comedy versus comedy,
Yeah.
for each year.
Yeah.
I mean, Stripes versus Caddyshack, he doesn't really have to be in the same year, but it came out in the 80s. Like I said, Porky's was another movie. It's like, putting up in to talk about them. It's just a way to have fun and interact with you guys, and we love doing that. So thank you for showing up and watching us when we do these. And as always, leave your what movies what you think won down below in the comment section. Helps with the algro.
First Blood, Last Blood, bro. Done. Although I don't think it's arguable that it's obviously the better franchise, even though it's got a bunch of forgettable films in them. There's been the last couple ones that have been somewhat okay, right? So, and the Conan has the second one, which is it's like going back to your ex. It's just never the same. You can't really do that. I mean,
yeah, was the last one called Last Blood?
It might have been. I don't know, but I don't think Rambo was the type of guy who would tap out. I think he would just get choked out, so I think he would just pass out. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But it's probably a decapitation by the sword, so we'll give him that. That's it. It's going out the warrior's way.
Yes. So that's it. I mean, for us, if you guys have any other questions, comments, concerns, leave those down in the comment section down below. We love reading your guys' chats. We love you guys here too as well. And we'll see you on Sunday when we talk about the top 10 movies of 1983, or actually 82. Sorry, I'm ready to try to jump ahead again because there's a lot of good movies coming out the next couple of years. I was looking at 83. We got Pussy coming up, man. There's a lot of cool James Bond stuff coming up. Oh man, and check out Tulsa King with Stallone. Yes, thank you, Ed.
The lastest blood.
The latest blood.
All right, everybody. See you guys on Sunday. Good night now.
Later, guys.